If you wish to see the truth, hold no opinions for or against anything. Is your ego sabotaging you? That first quote is from the third Chinese patriarch of Zen, which I'm going to do a reading of shortly. So what does that mean? Hold no opinions for or against anything. So let's take a look at what happens. What does that mean, holding no opinions for or against anything? That means we're standing in the center of the circle and allowing all things to take their course. That means we're the observer. We're in a thoughtless state. We're surrendering, staying present, right? We are detached. We have to be detached if we want to see the truth. So what happens when we get caught in the cycles of thought and we start to identify with our somebodyness, with our ego, right? We start to think we know things. We start to think we're in control. We think we're somebody doing something. All these things are attachments. And any attachment is going to keep us caught in the illusion. It's going to create separateness, right? Duality. And it's going to give us a lower limiting perspective. Whenever we're attached to our somebodyness, to our ego, we will never be able to see the truth because we can only see the perspective of what we are identifying with. It gives us a bias, right? If we think we know, that gives us a pretty big bias, right? And if we think we know anything, we won't be able to see the full truth because there's always a higher perspective of whatever we're identifying with. And that's not identifying with anything, not having any opinions or biases. This is how our ego sabotages us. And also, when we're attached as opposed to detached, this keeps us in the cycles of suffering. Because if we think we have control, right, we're attached to outcomes and expectations. And what happens when these outcomes or expectations don't go our way? We think we have control. This causes suffering. What happens when we think we're somebody doing something or things are happening to us? This causes suffering, right? All these identifications with the actor, with our somebodyness, our ego, keeps us caught in the cycles of suffering, keeps us caught in the illusion, keeps us caught in lower limiting perspectives. So when we're attached to the ego and we think we need to think about the future and we think where things are happening to us, we think we're in control, these are all our ego sabotaging us, right? If we want to see the truth, if we want to regain true common sense. This is why common sense has been killed, because the illusion from the time we're born into a program, into an illusion. And what it does is it feeds, inflates, hyperinflates our somebodyness, our ego, which keeps us thinking we know. It keeps us in these lower limiting perspectives, and it prevents us from seeing the truth. And when we think we know, we lose common sense because our ego, thinking we know, overrides common sense. Another aspect of common sense being demolished is when we have people who are emotionally unbalanced and they need the support of a type of group that they identify with. So they'll only be able to see a perspective from what they're identifying with, even if it's irrational or goes against common sense. We see this a lot happening in the world right now. So these are ways how the ego can sabotage us. It's a trap, right? All these things are trapped because they're attachments. Any attachment's going to be a trap, going to keep us in the cycles of thought. The cycles of thought are going to keep us in the cycles of suffering, keep us identifying with the ego, keep us in lower limiting perspectives. If we want to see the truth, if we want to regain true common sense and being able to really see the truth, we have to give it all up. Presence and purification. We have to detach. We have to dissolve the ego. How do we dissolve this sabotaging ego of ours? Presence and purification. Every second we're in presence dissolves the ego. it takes a while to chip away at this ego. This ego is going to keep pulling us back in, keep us thinking we're somebody doing something. Remember, the illusion is constantly feeding us, stimulating and aggravating the mind, inflating the ego to keep us, trying to keep us trapped in these lower perspectives, thinking we know, thinking we're in control, right? Thinking things are happening to us. The illusion is constantly doing this because it doesn't want us to know the truth, because it wants to control us. And the more we're caught in identifying with the actor, our ego, our somebodyness, the easier we are to control. I'm covering a lot of topics here, right? So this is how we lose. The ego is sabotaging us in so many ways. Where it's making us easier to control by keeping us attached to our somebodyness. It makes us lose our common sense because we think we know, right? And we can only see things from a limiting perspective that we're identifying with. What happens is, if we want to see the truth, we have to stop identifying with anything and simply become the observer. Be present. How do we do this? Presence and purification, surrender. We have to calm the mind. We have to remove things as much as possible that are aggravating the mind, facilitate a state of peace, right? Reconstitute or empty the mind, purify the body, which also helps calm the mind and calm the body. All these things work together to dissolve the ego, which is sabotaging us in the many ways we talked about, and helps us move closer to the center of the circle, which is the observer, the thoughtless state, which allows the divine to work through us. This is a higher self. This is how we see the highest truth. And this is how we allow the divine to work through us. And again, reconstituting or emptying the mind allows us to gain deeper understandings of these types of things, of how we're better able to dissolve this ego, which is keeping us caught in these traps, in the illusion, thinking we're somebody, right? Thinking we have control, thinking things are happening to us. This is all because we're attached or identifying with the ego, with the actor, which is all part of the illusion. Because what happens when we surrender? All these things disintegrate, right? When we surrender, when we're present, we get rid of all of our opinions and our biases, and we're just observing everything so we can take it all in. This is how we regain true common sense. This is how we fight back against our ego, which is sabotaging us from seeing the truth, from being our higher self. They don't want you to be your higher self. They don't want the cosmic beloved to be working through you, because if so, they would not be able to control us. The only reason they're able to control us is because of the how powerful the illusion is, and how much they just constantly feed aggravating and stimulating things to our mind that keep us caught in these cycles of thought. I just recently made a video called "The Burden of Thought: Dissolving the Spell," how we stop thinking, because thinking is the cause of all suffering. So back to the beginning. If we want to see the truth, if we want to regain true common sense, if we want to allow the divine to work through us, if we're tired of the ego sabotaging us, if you're stuck in these cycles of suffering, which can be physical, mental, emotional, right? If you're tired of stress and being worried and feeling guilty and all these things and sin, all these things are just part of the illusion. They're just traps of the illusion that we get caught in when we identify with the ego or the actor, right? They're all part of the cycles of thought. This is why it's so important that we learn how to calm the mind and empty the mind and stop these cycles of thought, because they're just keeping us trapped. Our ego is the guard at the gate to the divine, keeping us trapped in these perpetual cycles of suffering, of stress, right? Thank you for joining me, my beautiful friends. I am so grateful you were able to spend yet another beautiful moment with me. I hope I was able to shed some insight for you on how our ego is sabotaging us, how we lose common sense, how we regain this common sense, how we regain the ability to discern truth at the highest level by escaping these limiting lower perspectives through presence. That's how we dissolve the saboteur, the guard at the gate to the divine, the ego. Such a tricky, tricky little fiend this ego is, right? But through presence and purification, which is the only thing we really ever have to focus on, because that brings everything else together in balance, right? We gain our balance. We focus on presence and purification. We reconstitute the mind. All these beautiful things our cosmic beloved has blessed us with will help us become one with the divine and allow the divine to work through us. I am God's eternal love pouring forth. Namaste.